What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Hope that you are either driving extraordinarily safely or able to listen or watch us from home today. Definitely a wild one out there in the DMV. Anthony's actually still dressed as if he's outside. Are you gonna take your beanie off and your big heavy coat off and stay a while there, pal? Or are you just ready to jet in case we get a go home early signal or something?
Check in with me in about 30 minutes when you conclude First and 10.
Okay. First and 10 is kind of a long segment. It's not that long though, but it is the thing that we do off the top of the show. And I think we should just get to that, and then we'll see if Anthony's actually going to stay for the rest of the show.
It's time to get the breakdown started. First up, 10 observations.
And just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's First and 10.
All right, Anthony, let's go ahead and hit number one.
I don't have number one.
Number one. Hey, playoffs. Yeah. 12 wins. Yeah. What a finish. Yeah. Marcus Mariota, who came into this game in the start of the second half and just was damn near perfect for two straight drives. I mean, even the incompletion he has where he throws the ball back across his body to John Bates, that's an unbelievable play by Malik Hooker. And Marcus could not have hit a magical pause button, run down the field, and placed it any better in John Bates' arms. It's just a big hit by Hooker, who kind of, I don't know why Hooker's even thinking that throw's possible. That's an impossible throw that Marcus made. Back across his body, back across the field, and he's there to make a hit. He was awesome. He had about a 6 or 7 play sequence there at the start of the fourth quarter. There's a little bit left to be desired, but he's human. He's, I don't expect any quarterback to be perfect. Nevertheless, your backup. But, man, he was really good. And then he closes out that drive really strong. The throw to Terry's fantastic. Commanders win. Love this. Love this so much. And I love this so much for Marcus because I think coming out of the Netflix series Quarterback, people thought that he quit on the Falcons. And I don't know that was entirely true. And to the extent that it was true, it was the best thing for him to do so because he really needed to go find himself and he needed to deal with some stuff as a human being. And Sam Fortier wrote about this last week in the Post, and lucky for Sam, it becomes even more relevant this week. But Marcus had a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure that he put on himself because he wanted to be perfect all the time. And he worked with different professionals, mental health professionals and coaches and all different kinds of resources to understand how to deal with that. And now he is primed to play the best football of his career every chance that he gets, even if he probably will be a backup for the rest of his career. But the 7 quarters that he has played this year, the 3 halves that he has played this year have been just excellent. And it's one thing to do it against the Carolina Panthers. It's another to do it when your playoff seeding is on the line in Week 17 against the Dallas Cowboys, your bitter rival, the whole deal. And so good for Marcus Mariota. With that said,
Number 2.
This Jayden Daniels thing does not pass the smell test. And it's not, I'm hoping it doesn't pass the smell test because Dan Quinn is being coy, or at least trying to be, and it's still not that big of a deal. But let's, for a second, just take at face value the story that we are being told. Jayden did not have a good first half yesterday. In some ways, I was more encouraged after watching it back on tape because outside of the first series that we'll get to in a second, he actually saw the field pretty well. He just missed a bunch of throws, which was bizarre. He just wasn't sharp in the way that he wasn't sharp earlier in the year against teams like Pittsburgh. And once they kind of got into that practice window where they weren't practicing enough, and I wonder with Christmas last week and New Year's this week and being late in the year, maybe they've taken back some of their practice volume and Jayden is just not getting the reps that he needs to be as sharp. And that's something that as he gets more and more reps over the course of his life and his career, that won't be as much of an issue. He'll just be a sharper quarterback at all times, as opposed to, whatever the routine is that he needs. And maybe they'll also, I would assume, practice fully this week to be ready for the playoffs. So there's a lot of stuff that has to happen from injury management, load management, They got so many dudes hurt that like that affects your ability to practice. There's a lot of stuff. But on its face value, Dan Quinn last night said, hey, we took him out because of leg soreness and we wanted someone that had a little bit more mobility. And then my question that nobody asked last night and John Keim asked as a follow-up in the first question today in the press conference was essentially, if this wasn't week 18 with the playoff situation being what it was, that you have already clinched a spot, would you have made the same decision? And this is what Dan Quinn said.
I think so. I think you have to depend on the game first, John, to say, what's required for that game to go to win it. And I thought Dallas was really upfield. They're playing aggressive. This would be one that we have to get outside the pocket a lot. So that's why I decided. But I didn't really go into that space of like either or.
So the answer, in short, was yes. If this was any other week, I would have made the same decision. Which, again, I'm just stating the facts here. I'm not trying to start something. I'm doing my job. I'm asking questions. I'm giving opinions. And I'm trying to provide as much context as possible. Because I promise where I'm going to land with this is not like some conspiracy theory, wackadoo, there's a problem here. What we're being sold doesn't pass the smell test. Because what we're being sold is Dan Quinn would bench his franchise number 2 rookie of the year quarterback because he wanted someone with more mobility, when that someone that you're benching, that franchise quarterback, is Jayden Daniels? That doesn't make any sense. And I know you might be going, well, like, did you watch the game? You saw him get sacked? I did. Not only did I watch the game, I watched the L22 back this morning. And guess what? Jayden's legs were working just fine. He had a 16-yard scramble on a third down where he saw man coverage, was able to get out. He had there's another play where it's a zone read and he makes the wrong read. He should have given it to B-Rob, and instead he holds it and he goes to pull it, and then he realizes he's made a huge mistake, and he's able to process that so quickly, and he's so quick with his legs that he is able to basically follow B-Rob through the hole and turn what should be a -5 into like a +5. It's a pretty special play. There's a couple other times where he is able to get outside the pocket. Maybe he doesn't get the edge. There's the one silly sack at the beginning of the game on third down where he steps out of bounds for a -4. It's just a dumb thing to do. Just throw the ball away. But fine. His legs seemed fine. Now, if he went to Dan and said, hey, man, my legs don't feel right, Dan has every right in the world, and 100%, not only every right, he should pull Jayden. Hey, you don't feel right the week before the playoffs? All right, dude. Or frankly, it's week 7. You don't feel right? Okay. But let's think about who Jayden Daniels is as a competitor. This dude wanted to go back in a preseason game earlier in the summer because of how competitive he is. You think he's just being told hey, man, we're going to pull you here. Let Marcus play. There's more to this. And I'm hoping the more to this is Dan doesn't want to give up the facade that they were going all out in this game, because that's not who they want to be as competitors. And even though he is internally making the right decisions, his messaging outwardly is just very simply, hey, we're going to do what we think is best all the time. Doesn't matter. We don't play games. I thought Marcus was better for that because of something I saw with Jayden. And so I went with Marcus, and we were trying to win. And if that's the case, okay, I got no real problem with it. I hope that it's not, that this leg thing is more than just a light, mild leg soreness. And when Nikki Javala asked Dan that directly today, he said, I'm not worried about this long term. I got nothing to worry about. And it's fairly short and curt. So again, hopefully he's telling the truth. But to say, hey, I have a franchise quarterback that is one bad half away from being benched, that doesn't make any damn sense. We've seen Jayden turn games around this year. Jayden has constantly been cited as the reason why they have these moments where, if we got 5, we got a chance. And that guy can play a bad half and look not 100% of himself in the last game of the season and be benched. That doesn't make any sense. And so again, I probably won't be talking about this too much more the rest of the week, because the playoffs are coming. There's bigger fish to fry. And unless there's more news that comes out, we're just going to assume that this is some weird messaging and whatever. But I cannot in good conscience just push this under the bridge and pretend like we're not sitting here. I just feel like our intelligence is being insulted. That doesn't make any sense. And so I'm saying it out loud. The comments and the calls be what they be. People can speculate however they want. Ultimately, in the building, as long as they're all on the same page and they feel like they can go forward together, then that's all that matters. I think it's actually a testament to Jayden Daniels of how well he seemed to handle it, and that is really important as well, because he could have certainly thrown a hissy fit and been like, no, it's my game. I'm not being benched. Like, screw you. And we could have a mutiny. We didn't. And I think that is actually maybe the most important takeaway, is that Dan made a decision. To whatever extent Jayden was involved in the decision, we'll probably never know. But Dan made a decision. Jayden respected it. And not only did he respect it, he's out there being Marcus's biggest fan. That speaks so well to who Jayden is as a person. And it speaks well to the trust that Dan has. So a lot of the things here are actually really positive. I just don't love the fact that it's not even I don't love it. It's this explanation we're being given doesn't pass the smell test, and I'm not going to pretend like we're all not giving each other the look like, hey, doesn't this thing stink a little bit? And then, God forbid, something else comes out, and we're all like, whoa, never saw that one coming. That said, one more time, we transition with the that said.
Number 3.
I kind of love that they won this game without Jayden Daniels in the way that they did. How many times have we heard this year, oh, as long as we got a 5, we got a chance? And the thing is, now they can look at each other in the mirror and be like, as long as we got us, we got a chance. And we've talked about with the Lions sometimes of how Dan Campbell loves to say, it doesn't matter who puts on this jersey, we're going to show them who we are. And the fact that that's held true for Detroit speaks so well to their character. It speaks so well to their identity. It is so well established that they can bring someone in, seemingly anybody in, and be like, this is how we do business here. And that person's like, got it. And they go do it. And the fact that without Jayden Daniels to pull the strings, without the magic that he has displayed time and time and time and time and time again, and it does not take away from an ounce of said magic that he has provided this year. The fact that they still went down and did the damn thing, that Terry makes that play at the end, that Marcus finds a way, that he's out there running with Malik Hooker celebrating. He's like, oh, crap, I got to go tackle this 31-year-old quarterback running down for 33 yards on a 4th and 1. The fact that they just were them and they found a way by hook or by crook, even without 5, is kind of fantastic in its own way. And so good on the Commanders for getting that 12th win, lock up the 6th seed. It obviously, as we know now, wouldn't have mattered because the Packers laid an absolute, we'll call it an egg, but they laid something stinkier than an egg, talking about things that don't smell very good there against the Bears. But the Commanders lock up that 6th seed and their 12th win on the season. When we get back, we'll empty out the notebook with the rest of 1st and 10. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. All right, we talked big stuff off the top of First and 10, including the big thing of like, hey, what is really going on? Is there more going on potentially with the Jayden Daniels leg soreness situation? But let's empty out the rest of the notebook now and wrap things up before we get to your calls on a Tell the Truth Monday.
Number 4.
The lack of continuity on the offensive line, I think, is really hurting this team, starting in the pass protection. The Biadasz to Dieter drop-off as just pure players is fairly significant, and you see it a couple times in this game where Dieter gets beat quickly. The first third down of the game, Micah Parsons, I mean, look, Michael Dieter can go on a list with basically every offensive lineman that Micah Parsons is lined up one-on-one over ever to say that he lost quickly. Like, Micah's amazing. But, man, that is a quick loss. And there's a reason why they're picking to put him over the center, where if it's against Biadasz, perhaps he's over, say, Nick Allegretti, or they find another spot to line him up over. But that is a big drop-off. The communication is just not as good. There are times where the slides are not as clean or someone seems to be going the wrong way. There's funky timings. There's one play where Marcus has a zone read pull, even where the snap is just Marcus has to one-hand catch the snap. And so there's a lot of stuff there. And I think having a little more depth in the middle next year is going to be a priority not as a priority, but on the to-do list for Adam Peters this offseason. I also think that Jayden at times is just not seeing the field as well later in the season. And there's times where he's super on it. The New Orleans game, he was super on it. But on the first series of the game, Cliff gets him. It's a 3-play series, and Cliff dials up 3 easy completions for Jayden. The first one, there's no throw. It seems like Zach Ertz is wide open, and it's just like the simplest quick game there is. Just like everyone run 5 yards, turn around, and Zach Ertz is wide open. Jayden's looking at him. For some reason, he doesn't throw it. Pass pro holds up long enough to get the ball out if it's a quick game. And instead, he winds up taking a sack. Second down, they get a nice little out pattern to Ertz against a cover 6. O-line does a really good job. They get 11 yards. Sweet. Now we're back to 3rd and 3. And you got man coverage. And, again, this is the one where super quick loss. I don't know who to put this on. Clearly, it's a bad rep for Dieter. But Parsons just smokes him. But Terry wins on a shallow cross immediately. And he's running right in front of Jayden. Now, Jayden might not be able to see it because Parsons is in his face so fast, in which case, if I were to talk to Jayden and Jayden were to be like, yeah, dude, I couldn't see anything. I was just like, oh, crap, 11's coming. I'm dead. Then I'm not going to put that on Jayden. But I do think a more veteran quarterback might be able to see through that, and that's something where when Jayden becomes that more veteran quarterback, it's a potential growth opportunity. So it is just one of those things that when you're breaking down football, you can point there, point there, point there. A lot of different people have a way in every single play, but there are definitely a couple times in this game where you're like, dude, just throw the ball. And it seemed like in some ways similar to the first Dallas game, at times he was big play hunting, and that's not definitely when this offense or where he is at his best.
Number 5.
The other place that the offensive line is clearly hurting is the running back run game. And I know everyone likes to complain about B-Rob, and I'm not telling you B-Rob is just absolutely crushing it, and I'll get to him more in a moment. But the amount of dirty looks they're getting right now and the lack of movement in the run game is really not good enough. You just have to be able to move the line of scrimmage. One of my favorite things when I'm watching film is when a team gets a run, or I guess it's one of my least favorite things if it happens to Washington, is what looks like a no-gain run where the running back just runs into the back of the offensive line and gets tackled. And then all of a sudden you look up and it was a 4-yard gain. And you're like, oh, the offensive line moved the line of scrimmage that much? Dang. And the Commanders just aren't doing that on any regular basis right now. All of their plus runs are coming when a running back's able to hit a hole and get to the second level. There is very little of the just, hey, we took the line of scrimmage and we moved it down the field. And Eckler had a couple of nice runs where he's able to squeeze through holes because he's super decisive. And that's the thing I would like to see from B-Rob is it's not even a vision thing. It's a decisiveness thing. Hey, let's not try to wiggle through this hole. It's let's hit it right now and trust that the hole is going to open. And Eckler had a couple of those, including this really nice like weak side zone Wanda carry that I was like, ooh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And you get a 7-yard gain when he just shoots through the hole, and next thing you know, he's getting tackled by a safety. And I think Chris Rodriguez does that really well at times. And I'm still not really sure why he can't get more looks. But B-Rob's a starter, and it is what it is.
Number 6.
I thought Mark Sanchez made a really astute point yesterday during the broadcast, which is if this defense ever wants to become elite, they have got to start turning the ball over. And they're good at creating opportunities. You have guys in position to make plays. Frankie had another drop last week, which I think I'm obligated to try to bring up as many times as possible last week, because the last time he got hit in the face with the football, we brought it up constantly, and then he got a pick. So we're gonna take credit for that. Frankie, I'm sorry for saying all those things, but we're gonna have to do it again. But he had a drop yesterday. And I think there's a couple other opportunities in the game where, you know, a little bit more decisiveness, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. You're getting the ball tipped up in the air and it falls to the ground. You just gotta have a better sense for it. And I think one of the guys that has been, you know, around the ball more times this year is Quan Martin. And I think that him being out yesterday really hurt. I think there's a couple of the big plays that Dallas gets, even on the first drive, where I think Quan shuts those down faster. Maybe, you know, Noah Igbenogany falls down on a crossing route. I think Quan Martin sees that happen and just blitzes that dude and is like, I'm going to pick up this crosser. I think there's another play where I think Quan probably has a faster reaction than Percy Butler. And you got to get around the ball. You can't just rely on, hey, we'll bend but don't break and things will work out in the red zone. Although yesterday, if we could, number 7, please.
Number 7.
Things worked out in the red zone. You cannot play like that against Tampa, though. They are way too good. And I think in the red zone, what you are relying upon as an offense is decisiveness, conviction, and detail. And the Cowboys do not have, in their current state or in their state yesterday, Trey Lance playing in his first game in basically 2 years, meaningful snaps, starting his first game in 2 years. He's not going to be precise. That's not who he is as a player, and he has not had the reps banked to have that down there. And he's not going to be super decisive, and he's not going to throw with conviction. There's no one in the NFL that throws with more conviction than Baker Mayfield. And if there is a window that it might be open, he will drill a ball. And if he sees a guy open, he's going to make sure that ball gets there. And from the lack of detail, the lack of playmakers where there's no individual brilliance, really down there, because the only individual brilliance they have is like long speed, which can't have long speed in a short area. And Lance, like just missing that fourth down, for instance, that's the red zone defense did a lot of really great things yesterday. Some of the run stuffs they have down there, fantastic. But you're not going to get away with that level at that output against Tampa, nevertheless, Philly or anyone else, Detroit, anyone else you're going to play for the rest of the season.
Number 8.
One thing I really appreciated about the offensive game plan, Cliff had a very concerted effort to get Terry McLaurin involved. And I know it doesn't feel like that in the first half, but there's a bunch of plays that Terry doesn't get the ball because the pass rush gets home, Jayden doesn't see him, something stupid happens elsewhere. But like it was pretty clear. I was like, oh, I feel like Terry's the target here a lot. And then in the second half, it starts to play out even more, and he ultimately finishes with 12 targets. But it easily could have been 15 or more if the quarterbacks make a few different decisions. And what I appreciate, too, about Cliff and about Marcus and Jayden has been this way at times this year as well, is big moments, man, there's some stuff that could have been a lot easier. But Terry's our guy. force feed it, and Terry came through. There's a big catch on a dig. There's a big catch on a slant, and they're really tough catches. But he made them because he's Terry freaking McLaurin / scary Terry McLaurin. Boo, touchdown, franchise record, salute. Really, really happy that Terry has that record, especially in this season, because it just feels like it helps tell the story of the season of just how magical he has been.
Number 9.
I still can't believe Olamide Zaccheaus dropped that ball on the reverse pass from De'Ami Brown. De'Ami could not have dropped the ball better. I don't know what happened. I know sometimes there's a sun thing down there, but OZ, who's been fantastic and deserves so much credit, looked like he had never caught a deep ball in his life. I made this joke last night on the Take Command Instant Reaction show that we did with Grant Paulson. But, you know, to talk about like the bread basket, all you got to do is like hold out your basket and let it fall in. It looked like OZ took his basket and like turned it upside down, and then the ball hit the top of the basket, and you're like, the hole's on the other side, bro. Like you got to flip that. It was bad, but it was a great play. Hopefully it works next time.
Number 10.
All right, I'll say it. Benjamin St. Juste's ability to pick up key penalties in dumb spots is just wild. Pretty good for most of the day yesterday. Played some really good coverage. Sometimes like Noah's falling down, giving up big plays. Who's in lockdown coverage on the other side? BSJ. Covering deep stuff, doing the things he's supposed to do. And then you get in the second half in a tight spot, penalty, correct call on the hold. The PI is atrocious. Like, that one's tough because if I'm the DB's coach, I'm like, hey, man, do the same thing again. They're not going to call it next time because it's not a penalty. But the thing is, he has a reputation at this point, and I don't know what you do about that. You go somewhere else and get a new number and hope that referees don't recognize you or something, because he gets so many tic-tac calls where I think he plays the ball really well. From a coaching standpoint, I don't know what the coaching point would be different, but he's got to figure out how to play with even less contact. And if that means he gives something up, I guess it means he gives something up. But the penalties are absolutely killer. And he had another couple yesterday, even though, by and large, I thought he actually played a pretty good game. But that is the Benjamin St. Juste experience. I would rather opt for the Marshawn Lattimore experience, especially when that is the Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans experience. And there's at best, or at worst, a 50-50 chance that they fight. That's 1st and 10. Notebook is empty. Now, your turn. Tell the Truth Monday, 301-230-0980. We take your calls next.
The Maryland Terrapins play.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. I'll check the chat in a minute if you want to leave your Tell the Truth Monday comments there. But right now, we're going to start off on the phones at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Let's start off with Tim in D.C. Tim, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig? Long time listener, man. I appreciate your view and your perspective, bro. Let me get to it.
Appreciate that.
After this game, I feel like, man, everybody feels like we got a shot. Like how you just said, because if we on the team, it's not just because of vibe, man. I love the fact that after this win, it always feels like we got something to coach with. We got something to go back to practice with. I just want to know your perspective on that. We always got coaching tips to go with. Thanks for taking my call, man. Anthony, you my man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tim. Appreciate the call. And I think it's a great point that they do. And I have mixed feelings about it at this point in the season because I think on one hand, you always want to be looking for improvement. And I think the best coaches, we joke about this being Tell the Truth Monday on our show, which is something that we obviously took from Quinn and what they do out in Ashburn, where they have their Tell the Truth Monday. And I love that concept. It's part of the reason we stole the moniker for this segment is because when you win, you have to be able to make corrections. When you lose, it's a lot easier. As long as the losses don't just stack and stack and stack and you get tuned out. But as a staff, do you have the ability to focus guys week after week? And I do think that they have been able to do that in certain areas where certain things have gotten better. But, the nature of the NFL is you solve one problem, something else pops up. I think the problem for me is like this late in the season, I wish I felt better about I wish I felt better about the trenches. Because I don't know that those things are terribly, I don't know that those are coaching issues. I don't know how fixable they are. And I wish the coaches had found some better workarounds that I trusted a little bit more, but they also might just not exist. Like they might just be understaffed on the offensive line. And I think one of the things I've gotten clarity on, ironically in the last month, where it is worth mentioning, they've won 5 straight games. So they have figured it out to the extent that they've scored more points than the other team 5 times in a row. And that's the whole point of the sport. But I think going into this offseason, upgrading left guard and probably finding a better answer at right tackle. If you could guarantee that Wiley was healthy every week, I don't think you have to necessarily prioritize that. But this dude's been battling a ton of injuries over multiple years now, and he's not good enough as in the pass protection game to be like, oh, it's worth 12 games of Andrew Wiley. If I can get 17 games of Andrew Wiley and know that I can rely upon him in the run game, in the screen game, and just every week he's going to be there, and I can plan around him in the protection stuff, then fine. But I think if you can get, nevertheless, a Panay Sewell or Lane Johnson, who just is a game changer out there, but you just need some bigger dudes who create more movement in the run game and are more reliable and stouter in the pass game. And I think if you can get that at left guard and right tackle, and perhaps, who knows, maybe even Wiley moving into left guard and competing with someone else for that spot could be a solution, and Allegretti becomes your swing guy, which would be an upgrade over Dieter, then, that's a potential tenable solution as well. But, the reason I mention all this, though, is, they've won a bunch of games, but the stakes now become higher. I think we can have two conversations at once. The playoffs and what it takes to win there versus the very best teams in the NFL is one discussion. What it's going to take to build this team over time into a legit Super Bowl contender where we should have a lot more grace and a lot more patience, I think that's a different conversation. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Marcus. Marcus, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Coffee, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, dude. Did you make the trip down yesterday and bring your phone and signal to people in the press box in Dallas? Probably not, because the press box is a lot higher in Dallas. Or you just save that for Landover?
No, I didn't, man. I didn't. I wish I would have. I'm saving it for Landover. It's crazy. Like, we were actually just about to get some flights down to Tampa, and then as I was checking out, it said that no more seats are available. I was like, you know what? Maybe these are the football gods telling me that we're coming back to Landover, and then I'll just get them when we get back to Landover.
Yeah, they're just going to host the Packers in the NFC Championship game. You worry about that in a couple weeks?
Yeah, that's where my focus is.
I see.
So
I pick up what you're putting down, Marcus. What you got on this game / your Tell the Truth Monday?
So pretty much on the game and really over the season, like we make a lot of comments about the defense in general, and it's always something. I feel like at this point, the defense is what it is. Very rarely are they really, really good or really great. And I look at the scores. 5 times we gave up 30 points, and then I think one of those games we won, but all the other ones we lost. But we scored more than 30. It was 30 or more for 8 games, and that just tells me that, again, the defense is just going to be what it is. We have to find ways to click on offense. Like, if the offense is firing, I hate to just brush the defense off, but I feel like if the offense is firing, keeping the opponent's offense off the field, I think we'll have a chance against anyone. And it's crazy, but, I mean, with the defense, 17 games, I mean, it's no lie. Like, it just is what it is at this point. We can say such and such needs to do better, this person needs to make a better read. Like, it just is what it is. I feel like to really make a deep dive, just this year, not even thinking long-term, but just as far as this year goes, our offense needs to be on point at all times, at least for the next 3 to 4 games, for us to, make it to those 3 to 4 games. So that's my tell the truth.
Marcus, I think that's really good. Thanks for the call, bro. Appreciate it. And I mostly agree with that. I do think the one chance, first of all, just the part that I agree with. A couple weeks ago, we were doing a pick 6 on a Thursday, which is the day that the coordinators speak. We play the sound bites from Joe Witt and Cliff Kingsbury, and Joe said something about how we need to be more consistent defensively. And I was like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to nitpick here, and I'm going to say you don't need to be more consistent. You've been tremendously consistent. Just your consistency is fairly mediocre. You need to be better. And that means finishing some of these sacks as you get pressure in the backfield. Yesterday, one of the big plays, I can't remember if it was a big play or it was the one that, no, I think it was the 4th down that Lance missed. That should have been a big play for Dallas. Derek Forrest has him dead to rights in the backfield. Like, make the sack, man. Balls hit you in the hands. You got to pick those off. And so unless you're going to start doing that stuff consistently, that is a different level of consistency. That is being good consistently. You've been mediocre consistently. And you have to find ways to be better. I do think one of the ways you can be better, though, is you're actually getting a great player potentially back. Dan Quinn sounded fairly optimistic today with Marshawn Lattimore. If you're going to get Lattimore, that changes the entire dynamic of the defense. A true shutdown corner, if he plays at that level, changes everything. It changes the coverages you can call. It changes how you roll coverage to the other side. It obviously eliminates a potential weak point in the defense, if not 2, because you go from 2 semi-exposed corners to one who's getting a ton of help and the other who's not exposed at all. Like, that's a big freaking deal. Not to mention it might give you a little bit more time to finish some of these sacks and all those kinds of things. So that would be the hope defensively. But largely, this is a defense that's given up between 20 and 30 points consistently all year, 20 and 35, let's say. And they play a lot better when they get support from their offense, because what defense doesn't? And that is going to be on the offense that has kind of been sputtering, and then they get started and roll for a little bit, and then it's back to sputtering here for a couple of weeks, and just hasn't felt as consistent as it did earlier in the season. And frankly, I don't know how much of this is correlation versus causation, he said, but since Noah Brown went out, like, that's been a big deal, because there's I know that he had drops, and I know there's certain things he did, but he drew a ton of PIs, which got a ton of chunk yardage, which extended drives and helped you get in scoring range. And he caught a lot of these 3rd down, like, comebacks, hitches, slants, big body routes that haven't quite been as consistent. And certainly when Diami was out a couple weeks ago, like that was killer having both those dudes out. But it is something they've got to kind of figure out, because the other thing with Jayden is I can tell who I think we can all tell who he trusts and who he doesn't. And Noah was someone that he trusted. And some of this quick game stuff where you have to throw based off trust, it was another option where he could pick a matchup he liked and he would get the ball out versus holding on to it and then trying to scramble and instead running out of bounds for a sack of -4, which is a thing he did again on Sunday that I don't think I'll ever understand. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Tell the Truth Monday. Let's go to Doug in Leesburg. Doug, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Thanks for taking my call, Craig. Your content keeps getting better and better, brother. Keep
Appreciate
up the good work, man. Yeah, I thought Marcus came in and did well. I was always skeptical about Marcus at first when he first came, based on the drama in Atlanta, but he's really been a nice mentor for Jayden, so I'm grateful for him. And like you were just talking about that defense, it is what it is. To me, you can't ask for them to rely on you from time to time, especially with these better teams. You're going to have to want to play more ahead or play more consistent in the game for the offense. And I wanted to go back to your point earlier in the show where you pointed out the inconsistencies of messaging between Dan and Jayden and how that injury went out. Mm-hmm. I thought this was the first time that we've heard on a Tell the Truth Monday where he didn't tell the truth. In my case, I think he lied to make it seem like Jayden was still wanting to be a competitor and could go out there. And him saying that he, in any other week, it would be the same thing in the same instance, I truly do not believe that. I just think he wanted to be like that, so it didn't seem like he was giving up for a meaningless game in Week 18, even though they didn't treat it as a meaningless game. So I think you did bring up a good point there. It's not like you didn't have to didn't sugarcoat over. I thought it was a good point to bring up. But yeah, that's my touch right there. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it, Doug. Great call on all fronts, and not just because you agree with me. I thought you brought up some good points on Marcus, and I think it's big for people to be like, hey, you know what? I had questions. I remember Anthony. You remember we did a full-on football therapy session with Linnell because Linnell was freaking out that they signed Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we have that tape available if Linnell starts freaking out about anything that doesn't matter this coming offseason.
I'm pretty sure we do.
Okay.
But a lot of his, I guess, fear and trepidation of the signing had to do with the quarterback series and what went on in Atlanta.
Right.
I think
we don't know the whole story from a Netflix series from 2 years ago. God forbid. Maybe Brian Johnson, who was with him in Philadelphia last year, maybe he's got a better insight.
Uh-huh.
You think so, Doctor? Yeah. It's Tell the Truth Monday on the Hoffman Show. Linnell's catching strays. What more could you want here on the Team 980? Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Let's go to Mike. Mike, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. What you got on a Tell the Truth Monday?
Thank you for taking my call. Well, I am scared. As far as Jayden goes, I'm not buying what you're saying that he's fine, that it's just a little soreness. I think it's more than that. And, in this quarterback-driven league, you need to be available. And I think he should have sat down. I think Mariota could have won that game anyway. And now, as far as the seeding, people say that, it's best to get Tampa. Well, I think, in my opinion, it's pick your poison because now it's 0-0. He's starting fresh, and the Rams are hot. We can't overlook that he still has enough in the tank. Quarterback winner. I take Sean McVay over Sirianni anytime. And for Baker, he's speaking at the right time, along with a future Hall of Famer receiver. And they're no joke. As far as Philly, if you think about it, yes, we would play them 3 times if we had lost. But then you have Jalen Hurts dealing with a concussion. I believe that he'd have to think twice running as much. And you got his backup with a broken rib. So they've been slowed down. And now the unknown is scaring me with Jayden. I think I'm thinking 2012. God forbid.
Yeah, we're gonna just absolutely nix any 2012 talk in the bud, because Robert and Jayden could not be more different. And I do think, to the extent that like we have the PTSD of what happened with Robert and coaches not being honest and whatever, like they're gonna go through the process here because they realize that the health of Jayden in the long term is the most important thing. And I actually think that's probably something that Dan had in his mind yesterday. Again, I don't think this all adds up. I think part of it, and I think part of it that Dan doesn't want to say. Here's actually, the more I think about it, and I fleshed out different parts of this, right, is that Dan doesn't like criticizing his own players, which is fine as long as he does it behind closed doors. But he'll say, we have to do this thing to the press, and then behind closed doors, he'll be like, John Allen, Deron Payne, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, you have to do this. Here's an example. Here's the tape. That can't happen. Like, he'll criticize guys or praise guys based off what actually happened on film. And I think part of the thing that he doesn't want to say out loud in the press, because of who he is and how positive he likes to keep things in terms of morale, and that the players trust him, that if they do something wrong, they're not going to get thrown under the bus in the media, is that he doesn't want to say that he didn't trust his own line yesterday. He didn't want to say, I don't know what Brandon Coleman's doing on this snap. I don't trust Michael Dieter to block Micah Parsons. And we're too close to the playoffs to let Jayden take a dumb shot. And we're just going to let Marcus go run around. Because, like, I've watched the tape. Jayden's legs looked fine to me. But with Marcus out there, like, it was a little bit different. He was a little bit more decisive. There was some of the veteranness that you saw. And he was just more accurate. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's like Jayden actually, as the game went, like settled in okay from a decision-making standpoint. He just couldn't complete the throws. And so I don't know how much this really has to do with an injury. I definitely feel like Jayden might not have felt 100%. And I think that there was a risk because the O-line wasn't playing great ball. And that's kind of where I land on it. Mike, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Speaking of Mike's on the phone, Michael Phillips joins us next for a Michael Monday. It's a Tell the Truth Monday. It's a Victory Monday. It's a Michael Monday. And then we're going to go around the NFL at 5:30, talk about the rest of the games, although for some of the games, we're not really going to talk about the game. We'll talk about decisions that are made about head coaches, general managers, some of whom are going, some of whom are surprisingly staying. We'll get to it all at 5:30. Our pick six at 6 at Well. We're loaded up on a Monday on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And it is time on a Monday for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Monday's football season. It's Michael Phillips. And Michael, let's dive right in because I feel like talking through, hey, this doesn't smell quite right situations. You're the person to talk these through with. The Jayden Daniels explanation on, hey, he had leg soreness, and if it was any other game, I would have done the same thing from Dan Quinn, makes zero sense because what you're saying is that if my quarterback is a little bit banged up and we're not playing well, I'm going to bench my franchise quarterback on any given Sunday in the NFL. It's not a thing NFL head coaches do. That's my read of it. Am I missing something, or does it also smell funny to you?
Yeah, no, he's missing the part where he played him with the rib injury for 3 weeks, and we all noticed he wasn't 100%, even though in the NFL you tough it out through these things. Come on now. That was ridiculous. Yeah. No, it was because of the playoffs are next week, and certainly would have been nice to have the seed, but not essential. You don't want to give it all up in the quest to go for the 6th seed. That said, really glad they ended up with the 6th seed, and it's certainly a better path than the 7 for sure. But with regard to Jayden, yeah, come on now, that's ridiculous.
What's your theory? Is it just purely like they were going to give him a half all along? Because it seems like for the broadcast, they like noticed some things going into the half, and then obviously asked the question, and they were kind of seemingly on top of it. To me, it would make sense that he watched how his offensive line played in the first half and was like, yeah, I don't need to risk Jayden behind this. Like we're good here. That's my theory of the case. What's yours?
Yeah, and certainly when Trent Scott gets in, that's your cue. You got to cut bait here and do it quickly. I don't believe it was planned. I believe the intent was for him to play 4 quarters or until the game was decided. That was my hunch there. That was the plan coming in, and then the plan changes. And the plan changes because of the offensive line and because he's getting rocked and whatever leg situation there is. And, you've got a much more important game coming very quickly. So I think that's the important thing. By the way, I'm not here to big time you, Craig. I may have to scoot here in a couple minutes. We don't have water in the city of Richmond right now. I'm down here going to talk to the mayor about this. So I am going to big time you for the mayor of Richmond here. Are we getting rolling with this? We're getting ready to go. All right, I got to bail on you. Have Anthony check in with me. We will figure this out another time. I'm going to go get to the bottom of some stuff.
No, please, Michael Phillips, single-handedly get the water turned back on in Richmond. Do your thing, man. Michael Phillips, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show. Look, Anthony, if I was going to talk about literally one thing with Michael, I'd want it to be the Jayden Daniels situation. So we got through the Jayden Daniels situation, and then Michael, on top of hosting his daily sports talk radio show, he also runs a Richmond news site that does hard news. And I would say getting the fact that there's no running water in the city of Richmond right now is a pretty important news story.
Yeah, that's very concerning. And I think that's more important than maybe, doing a little radio hit.
Yeah, I think, look, we love having Michael on. Love it. We've done it, 3 years in a row?
Yep.
2 years in a row? Whatever it's been. But we do talk about this team all the time. The show doesn't die if Michael's not here. So we should probably prove that point as opposed to just singing the praises of Michael and get on with the show. But yeah. Again, I don't want to make too much of the Jayden thing. I think this team has other problems. I don't like being lied to. And this is 100%. Maybe there's a lie by omission somewhere and not like a straight up lie. But this story doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And it's annoying me. And I'm trying to just say it's not that important as long as Jayden's actually healthy and keep it moving. And I'm clearly, Anthony, doing a bad job of that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think everybody can see through the BS. I wouldn't necessarily, take it like too personal. Like
it's not personal. Personal as in like me. I don't think Dan Quinn's doing this to Craig Hoffman to be like, that sucker, it's on 4 o'clock on 980 every day. I'm going to get under his skin.
Now, I mean, I think you already, pointed out why, the move and why, like, he ultimately made the move. Like, the O-line is banged up. We have a far more important game for next week. Hopefully, the signs are pointing towards us getting Tyler Biadasz back next week. The communication isn't, as consistent when he isn't in there. So the decision to pull him, the fact that, Micah Parsons and company had a few hits on him, and the O-line wasn't necessarily holding up. Also, Trent Scott had made an appearance. It was just like, all right, maybe this
Poor Trent Scott. He's out here doing that to your frat brother.
No shade to him.
Yeah, doing that to your frat brother. What are you doing, bro?
But I'm just saying, like, it was the right move to make. It was.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like, it was the right move. I guess that's
he
what
can't say that, though, Craig. He can't say that.
Why?
What you mean? You're going to say the O-line's not – I mean, I guess you could. I guess, you could hold the O-line responsible
I think
or
he
accountable.
could have said, like, hey, Jayden came to us and said, my legs were a little sore. Like, it's just something's not right. Our O-line was – I mean, he kind of did say it. Like, he gave credit to Dallas. He's like, Dallas is really getting upfield. But then, like, this is the problem with lying, right? When you lie, keeping your story straight is a lot harder than when you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And we just needed a quarterback with more mobility. Bro, you're benching Jayden Daniels. And, like, we all saw him run around in the first half. Like, there was at no point in the first half was I like, that dude's legs aren't working. I was like, why is his arm off? Like, why is he overthrowing stuff? And so I think that's the thing that, like, he kind of did say it. It's just, if he had been more honest with the reasoning, it wouldn't sound like it did, which is, hey, if he's just like, look, Jayden came to us, said his legs are feeling a little sore, took a couple hits there, and with the playoffs on the line, we decided that it was the best thing for the team to let Marcus get in there and get some snaps. Okay, no one's got any questions, right? That's not what he said. He said, I would have done this every single week. And I love Michael's point that he's like, yeah, we're going to pretend like you didn't play him with a rib injury that clearly was not right for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And Jayden, like, didn't want to get back. There's a piece that doesn't add up. And that annoys me. But we're going to leave it in this segment for the very simple reason that this is a 12-win team that makes the playoffs. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill any more than I probably already have. And I think we should talk about other good things. In fact, let's do this with Michael having to go, single-handedly figure out what's going on and turn the water back on. Michael, I just now have this vision of Michael with a flashlight somewhere under the city of Richmond in a big old trench coat because it's freezing, trying to twist some knobs and get the water back on with the mayor trailing him with a second flashlight. That's not what's happening. They're probably just having a conversation with a tape recorder, and then Michael's gonna write about it. Let's focus on, like, 3 or 4 other things from this game that send us into the playoffs. And it could be concerns, but they could also be like, I feel really good about this. We can keep rolling with some calls. Tell the Truth Monday style, 301-230-0980. Anthony and I will give some thoughts as well. And then we'll go around the NFL, get you caught up with all the latest coaching news, who's staying and who's going at 5:30. It's a Tell the Truth Monday on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 5:30, around the NFL we go. Anthony, do we have to compile our regular season records? I guess we do. On the picks side of things. You didn't catch up on the 5 games you needed this weekend?
I know for a fact I didn't.
Well, I know for a fact that I'm scared for Competition Wednesday again.
Boy, me too, Craig.
Oh,
Me too. I think I picked the Commanders -6 over the Cowboys. I think that's one of my losses.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see. We'll see how it goes on Wednesday. Because I did not. I had a 7-9 week this week. I did, however, finish. But I know that like some of the ones that I picked, I'm pretty sure did not go my way. So we'll see if I try not to look too far ahead. We'll see. But I will say on the First Impression Selection Show. So Tony and I started that show in week 6. Every single game against the spread, every single week, I finished 28 games over 500. I picked games against the spread this season from week 6 on at a 57% clip. That's insane.
Very good. Very
like,
good. And
I
if you
am
bet money.
I would have made money and like potentially a significant amount because if I had bet bigger on some of the ones that I was a little more certain about, which you should never be that certain. That's why they air condition the desert. But like with that kind of win percentage, Anthony, I could make a commercial that you would hear with like a 1-900 number late night on sports talk radio stations if you listen to like overnights. Call now and I'll give you my picks for week 15. Buddy making, I don't think they're legally allowed to say guarantee, but like I hit it 57%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's pretty psyched about it.
Really good, actually.
See how I do in the playoffs. Time matters now. We spent a lot of time on that show this morning talking about the Black Monday stuff too, which is fun. We'll get to that again coming up at 5:30. Right now, though, some other things from the Commanders game. A nonsensical fun thing. There was 3 really wacky moments in this game, Anthony. This is apropos of nothing. Just fun on the radio. Remember when the Cowboys cheerleader? I mean, it's funny for us, not so funny for her. But she had a good laugh about it and seemed to be a good sport. Remember when the Cowboys cheerleader got hurt or got hit with the ball?
Yep, when Aubrey kicked the ball out of bounds, which was smart.
Why was it smart?
Ooh, Craig. All right, so I saw a tweet. Basically, since 15 yards have been added to the
because
kickoff.
of the 40?
Yeah, so it had moved up to the 50. So essentially, Dallas stole 5 yards by kicking the ball out of bounds.
Based off a regular touchback.
Yeah,
and based off
the ball
fact
into the
that
end zone, it would have been to the 30. But instead, since they kicked that out of bounds,
see, that feels like a loophole. They should fix that.
Know the rules, man.
Or I guess the Commanders shouldn't have committed a penalty.
Well, that too.
So honestly, I kind of like that rule. Okay. See, I'm glad. We all learned something there. Unless you saw the same tweet that Anthony did.
Yeah.
So that was a wacky moment. Then, other wacky moment. When OZ dropped the ball. Not great.
No.
The all-22 of that play is really funny. Simply because sometimes with certain angles based off where the all-22 camera is, you catch fan reactions in them. And there is a dude, I put this up on Blue Sky, and I'm going to make a TikTok out of it as well. So this will be up on TikTok. It'll be up on Instagram in a version later. Today, probably after the show, I'll make this. But, so the play is going right to left on your radio dial, if you will, right? Diami comes around, he's rolling left, he's throwing deep, throws it, that beautiful left-handed spiral down there, and OZ just for some reason can't get his hands underneath it. And there's a dude sitting up near the camera that as the camera hard pans left into the end zone to try to get to OZ is wearing a Jayden Daniels jersey and gives you the big, full-on surrender cobra.
That's a good camera angle.
On the all-22. Genuinely hilarious, which I think is going to be extra funny in the meeting room. Like if I'm Bobby Ingram and I'm the Commanders receivers coach and we're playing that play and I'm like, OZ, what happened? Look what you I'm like circling that. Look what you did to this guy. The other wacky bit was, I think more people probably saw this because this was not pointed out but was visible on the broadcast. On the 4th and 1 where Marcus Mariota took off and gained 33 yards on the final drive, you see Malik Hooker on that play?
I did not.
Oh, this one is also going in the TikTok / the Instagram reel. Malik Hooker is watching that play as a deep safety from about 20 yards, just in case something weird happens, right? So it's a zone read. Micah Parsons, Dallas knows what's coming. And so what they do is they play I think it's called crash replace or crash and scrape. I can't remember the first word, but it's something in scrape. Crash, blitz, whatever in scrape. So you have your linebacker go hard at the running back. That way, if there's a handoff, then you have the chance to make a play behind the line of scrimmage because it's 4th and 1, and that's what you need to do to get the stop. What that does, or what it should do, is then create a pull situation for the quarterback. But what you do is you scrape a linebacker over the top, and so that way it's kind of like you trick the quarterback into pulling it, but surprise, there's someone else there. Well, Marcus gives. Looks like Micah Parsons makes a play in the backfield. And then, okay, cool. The scraping linebacker's there. And Malik Hooker, I think, thought Marcus gave it. And 2 hands up in the air. He's celebrating. He's like, we just won the game.
Hey, that's actually hilarious.
And it takes until Marcus is 12 yards downfield for him to realize that Mariota's got the ball and he needs to go make a tackle.
Wow.
And then he winds up chasing Mariota.
That's actually
33 yards later, one quick completion to Zach Ertz, spiked the ball, which, God, I had a mini heart attack when the whole line had to move because the refs respotted the ball.
Yep.
That was heart attack inducing. If the Commanders had been ready and the refs had cost them the game based off that, I would have been irate. But they didn't. Spiked the ball. Scary Terry. Touchdown. By the way, gutsy to not just kick the field goal. And the other thing that I will say about that final drive, actually, hold on, where are my notes? Because I want to try to remember the exact 2 plays. It was the touchdown and it was the out to Ertz, the literal last 2 non-spike plays of the game. Austin Eckler as a run or as a pass protector, holy crap, man, huge blocks. And those balls are getting off quick. But like Jayden would have pressure in his face pretty instantly if Austin doesn't do exactly his job. And now, like, that's how 6-man protections work, is there's going to be someone free and the running back has to pick them up. So it's not like some heroic play. He just does his job, but he just does it so tremendously well that Jayden can step into those throws and, hey, welcome back 30. You're in there in the big situations and making magic happen. So good job. Good job, Austin Eckler. Good job, pass pro, on that final drive. Pretty much the entire time. It'd been cool if actually no, sorry, look at that one. Yeah, no, it was on that drive. It'd be cool if Allegretti didn't jump off sides and create a 1st and 15 to have to overcome. But it is what it is. What you got? What's on your giant notepad, Anthony?
I mean, the biggest thing on the biggest takeaway anyway, and I was watching this game while I was at the Colts game.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then I had to watch it again, I guess while I was on my plane ride back. But yeah, the lack there of a run game is definitely like super concerning. But I think everybody, has a consensus on that being, something to improve upon. But I think Marcus Mariota has earned himself another contract, to be honest, Craig. I would not be opposed to the Commanders going out and re-signing this guy to a 1-year or 2-year deal.
I would try to do a 1+1.
Yeah.
I would try to make it so you have a 2-year deal. If he'll do a team option, sick. Now, he might say, hey, man, I'm going to do this for 1 more year, and then I might want to be able to go and have a last chance to start. So how about we make it a player option for the 2nd year? But 1,000%, they are going to try to bring him back, and I would think he wants to come back, and just everything that you can keep about that quarterback room the exact same, I would. 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, Marcus definitely earning himself another contract. And then the other big thing, like outside the run game, offensively, I would say, the drops. We're dropping too many passes. I think execution in the playoffs it's a premium, and I don't think we've been sharp, the last couple of weeks. Yes, we have found ways to win these games. I've had my halftime good luck glizzy, 4 straight.
I mean,
hey, I don't know what it is.
some things just can't be messed with.
They can't. But we find ways to come back and win these games. But I want us to be able to get out to a quick start. Again, another slow start, a 3-and-out to start the game. It's just like, when are we going to have a game where we actually can put together 4 good quarters like we did, against the Bengals, or, I don't know, something along those lines. But it's been a while since we started fast and we've been able to execute. I look at the Lions. They do such a good job of just executing. And that was against a good Vikings team that they were playing against. So,
yeah,
that's the only other thing.
That's the thing, right, with the receiving room is, like, we talk about they need to get better at receiver, and people are like, oh, Zacchaeus has had a great year. Got to get Giambi more involved. It's like, better guys do that good stuff more often. And, like, OZ had a wild game because he had a couple of sick catches. He also had a couple of relatively easy drops, and he just dead-ass drops of trick play touchdown where he should have been one of the easier touchdowns of his career.
Yep.
Like, that touchdown is easier than the one where he was wide open 2 weeks ago and had to break 2 tackles at least. Like, that one, it was a busted coverage and he's wide open, but to make that into a touchdown, he at least had to try. This one, like, he's just run and catch. It's a drill, and he just dropped it. But then he makes, on the first series that Marcus is in, he catches a fade down the sideline over Lewis that is beautiful.
Yep.
Like, I think Marcus had Zach Ertz over the middle on a pretty easy dig. And it's just like, hey, man, just throw the dig. But he thought OZ had a good matchup, and he threw it. OZ had good leverage, and OZ makes a hell of a catch and makes him right. And so, that's this game sometimes, is the spectacular goes right and the easy can go wrong. And you just, I think, pray for some more consistency out of that group. And then the other big thing to me is the penalties too. I mean, just looking down, you got on the second drive, you have a Bates hold that sets them back into a 1st and 20 that they don't ever get out of.
That call?
I didn't love that call, to be honest. I don't feel like there was ever a hold, but also you can't really tackle guys. So, like, to me, like, he kind of, he washes him, and he just does such a great job of it that dude goes down. But I don't know if there's actually a hold there. So, like, I did think it was questionable. I actually want to ask Logan about that one. But it got called. Let's see. What else we got?
The second BSJ penalty I didn't really like.
No, that one was bad. I'm just looking at the offense.
Oh, Allegretti.
Drops, you had underthrows.
Yep.
There's a ball that Jayden underthrows on what they call it shock option in Madden. It's like the slot. You have a quick comeback on the outside and a slot fade.
Yep.
And Diami's open and Jayden underthrows it. So you have, like, just all kind of stuff like that where it's like you have a drop here, a penalty there, an underthrow here, and it really does come down to the execution. And if they can get that down, then great. But, like, that's the thing. Good teams execute. Great teams execute with consistency, which is why Detroit's Detroit, Washington's Washington, and some teams that we're about to talk about that fire their coaches are firing their coaches because that's the game. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we're going around the NFL next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Time to go around the NFL. We will breeze through the games for the most part because most of the games yesterday were not really that important or interesting. I mean, some of them were like the Carolina-Atlanta game was actually a great game. And there's some like long-term significance there as Bryce Young just continues to show that, he may not have been dead after all. In fact, I think we very much know that he's not dead or wasn't dead as an NFL quarterback when he got benched earlier this season for Andy Dalton. But there's no actual playoff implications, and neither coach is losing his job or anything like that. So some of these games we'll just kind of hit a few final thoughts for the season. Some of these we'll maybe spend a little more time on because the game was important, something interesting happened, or the team is either going in a playoff or fired their coach or a head coach or maybe didn't, and that's a surprise direction. But we're going to kind of I guess, Anthony, the point is we're going to give our final thoughts on every team for the regular season. Along the way, we will use the games as a vehicle to do that. We will also compile all of our final regular season records. I was 5 games up on Anthony on the picks going into the weekend. And with that, around the NFL we go. Ravens started off the weekend with a big win, 35-10. Not only did they beat the Browns, they covered the highest spread in the NFL all season. It got up to 21 points in some places. I think it was 19.5 at kickoff. Won by a cool 25. Obviously, Baltimore is headed to the playoffs. Moment of this game, a defensive tackle, Michael Pierce, with the game-sealing interception, and then immediately went down because he didn't want to become a meme for Leon Lett situation, big guy running and either running out of gas or getting the ball stripped out. Genuinely hilarious. But Lamar, cool, 16 of 32, 217, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 138, 2 touchdowns. The Browns started Bailey Zappi because sure. And then we find out today from their general manager, Andrew Berry, that Deshaun Watson had a setback recovering from his Achilles situation already. So who knows what that means. The Browns finished with the number 2 pick. They're a nightmare. Stefanski, I guess, is probably going to keep his job, which I hate that for him because he's a better coach than the Browns. Andrew Berry, I don't even think is a bad GM. Like, their front office is filled with guys that are going to get, and women who are going to get GM looks other places because I think there's a lot of respect there. But the Browns' problem is simple. You can't outrun bad ownership. Their ownership is terrible, and thus here we are at the end of another lost season where Cleveland Browns fans mostly deserve better.
Yeah, did you also hear what Myles Garrett said?
Oh, he wants out.
Yeah, he sort of kind of wants out too. And Craig, he would look good in some burgundy and gold, baby.
I would I would give up more than I should for Myles Garrett on this team.
Would you want Myles Garrett more or Micah Parsons?
Micah. Ooh. Just purely on age.
Okay, that's fair.
And familiarity. Like Dan Quinn and Joe Witt know Micah. Myles Garrett, I don't think there's anything bad to know about. Like, Myles is considered, I mean, outside of the Mason Rudolph incident, very, very well respected. And frankly, some people I think like him for the Mason Rudolph incident, which we don't need to go any deeper into that. But I think great teammate, been a model citizen in Cleveland in terms of how he's handled being a part of that trash organization. They should trade him because there's no way, there's no timeline where he is at the peak of his powers and worth what he is right now that matches them winning. Just take the draft picks and say you lost and you messed up in the same way that you screwed up Joe Thomas's career and any other Browns player that's been good since the franchise kicked off again. As for the Ravens, they're one of the most dangerous teams in the playoffs. We'll have plenty more time to talk about them. The Bengals, 19-17 winners. Joe Burrow, again, just finding ways, doing things. Steelers, again, finding ways, doing things to not win down the stretch here. Bengals wind up missing the playoffs. They fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, today, which I don't love, but I understand. I mean, defensively, they were not good this year. It's the reason they're not in the playoffs. But, you know, Anarumo's a good coach. Do you really think that you're going to find someone better? This feels like a dude who's getting fired because the owner was like, I'm not firing my head coach. You better make some changes or I'm going to change you. And Zach Taylor was like, okay. Hey, Lou, sorry. Like, it is what it is. Now the Bengals enter a fascinating offseason where they have to first they have to re-sign Jamar Chase, which is now going to be more expensive than it would have been before the season because he can make a legitimate claim that he should get more money than Justin Jefferson because he just won the Triple Crown. 2, they have to decide if they want to also keep T. Higgins, which means you'd have an insane amount of money, cap percentage-wise, tied up in 2 receivers and your quarterback. And then you have to figure out if you can do all the other stuff you need to with your roster when you haven't been very good at drafting, and your quarterback is going to always keep you good enough to not have a top 10 pick. So it's a tough call. I don't know what to do because I also wouldn't want to. Here's the thing I would say, Anthony. I would not want to piss off Joe Burrow.
I mean, I won't want to piss him off either, but it is tough. I mean, I will say this, though. If the Eagles are able to have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on relatively big contracts, I think you should try to, see.
But here's the thing. The Eagles were smart with it. They paid those guys early. Paying early is always like
better.
I want to say always because I'm sure there's guys that don't get contracts that you're like, oh, thank God we didn't pay that guy early.
Uh-huh.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are not those guys. Joe Burrow, not that guy. Like, I would have paid Joe Burrow the absolute highest paid quarterback contract the second he was eligible. Why? Because when the next guy signs and the next guy signs, the number just goes up. And the same thing for Jamar and same thing for T. They were really smart and signed Devontae early, but they're more cash poor in Cincinnati than they are in Philly. And that has allowed Howie Roseman to manage the cap in a very, very proactive way. And the Bengals never do that. The Cowboys are the same way. The Bengals just do the same dumb thing the Cowboys have done with Dak, where they wound up paying him like $15 million more per year after a bad ankle injury. And they did the same thing with CD, and they're doing the same thing right now with Micah because Jerry's. When I bought the team, I bought the occupation. I'm not going to be not the general manager of this team. Then, Jerry, you might want to learn how to do some math, bro. Whatever. Panthers and Falcons. There's not a lot to say about this. This was kind of the joke of the game that we used to say that there's not much to say about some of these games. Hell of a football game. Congrats to Carolina. They never gave up on the season. I think that you have to, if you're a Panthers fan, feel pretty good going into this offseason with where Bryce Young is at. Canales showed some things. There was definitely some questions about him. But he seems to be one of these quarterback whisperers, and good on him, man. For the Falcons, they have got to get some pass rush. They have got to fix some things defensively. But I think you also probably are a little encouraged, and not a little, you're a lot encouraged by what you have in Michael Penix. You're going to have to see if you can trade Cousins this offseason, if Kirk even wants to keep playing. We'll see how he feels coming out of the offseason or coming out of the season. But definitely a very interesting thing. Or he might just be like, you want to know what? I'm going to take my money and I'll be the backup here. I'm going to help Michael as best I can. And maybe Kirk just moves into that phase of his career. But I definitely think if you're Atlanta, you try to trade Cousins, eat whatever the cap hit is for that, and then see if at least you can redeem some draft picks. So we'll see. You have teams like the Browns who are going to be desperate. How many quarterbacks with bad Achilles can we bring into one room? Because they've also been rumored for Aaron Rodgers.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I heard that one on Get Up today. Like, I think Cleveland should be looking at Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, man, that's a match made in not heaven. But yeah, I think the future is bright for both these teams in a variety of ways. But also, we'll see. Now's the hard part. Can you go from, in Atlanta's case, good to great, and from Carolina's stance, from plucky to like really actually dangerous? All right, let's take a quick break. Come back. We'll roll through the rest of these games. Anthony, by the way, how did we do on those three? Browns, Ravens, we won. Bengals, we won.
You went 2-1. I went 1-2.
Okay, because I took Carolina.
No,
I took Cincinnati. You took Pittsburgh.
I took the Steelers. Yep.
All right, so Anthony needed 6 games of the final whatever number. I don't think he's going to get it, but stay tuned for more. Anthony, let's ixnay ending tray, and we'll be right back with more thoughts on the end of the regular season for much of the NFL, but not the Commanders. Next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. Going around the NFL, and let's pick things up with the Bears and Packers. A wild, wacky, stupid football game that made the ending of the Commanders game less meaningful in the long run, because had Terry McLaurin dropped the ball or had they kicked the field goal and gone to overtime and lost, they still would be the 6th seed, because the Packers, who just needed to beat the 10-game losing streak riding Chicago Bears, a team that they had beaten, I believe it was 11 straight times, and the Bears won the football game. The Packers got a weird gift, both in the form of Caleb Williams taking an RPO that should never have been an RPO and throwing it to DJ Moore on a screen. It's the kind of thing that I would do in Madden, which I don't mean as a compliment. It makes me re-examine how at the end of a Madden game, I'm just stats accumulating. But this is real life. Run the football. And DJ Moore gets hit. It should have been an incompletion. Instead, they call it a fumble. Packers get it, go down. They manage the clock terribly, give the ball back to Chicago. Chicago winds up taking advantage, hitting a game-winning field goal. Just Packers fans, at least they can rest easy with the idea that did not cost them the 6th seed, because Mariota and McLaurin did what they did. That's about all they got going for them.
Yeah, I was watching the end of this game too. We were actually watching the game side by side, because my best friend, he's a Packers fan as well. We're at the Colts game watching the Commanders and Packers game.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, how much time is left? He's like, it's 36 seconds. I'm like, how much time left is over here? It's 6 seconds left. I'm like, oh, okay. It was crazy. Like, I'm pretty sure the witching hour was probably crazy as hell yesterday.
Oh,
crazy.
It was. And I had that on the iPad sitting next to me with the Commanders on the big screen TV. And it sucked because the red zone was actually ahead of the Commanders TV. So I looked over and I was like, ooh, that's good. Oh, that's bad. That's good. That's bad. Wait, which game am I? It was nuts. As for Chicago, I think tomorrow, maybe, Anthony, we should rank all the head coach openings. I'll tell you right now, Chicago's going to be pretty high on my list because of some other stuff with some of these other jobs. But they head into their offseason with a win, which is good for whatever. 5-12 in Caleb Williams' rookie year. That's, by the way, also their first road win of the year in Week 18. Texans 23, Titans 14. There's literally nothing to talk about with this game. Nobody played. The Titans, they get the number 1 pick. That's great for them. I'm very curious to see what they do with it, whether they trade out and try to let someone else take a quarterback. Do they take a quarterback? Do they go Travis Hunter? We'll see. Jags, Colts. You were there, Anthony. Anything to write home about this game?
Nothing really.
That's the correct answer. Jonathan Taylor probably won some people some fantasy championships. 34 carries, 177. By the way, speaking of fantasy championships,
he lost me mine, Craig. I needed one more crazy one. Actually, no. There was no chance I was beating Jahmyr Gibbs. He was a fantasy league winner. He went.
So who did you lose to? Who won our league?
Let me get his name real quick.
All right. Well, Anthony looks that up. I'm going to keep rolling. Bills 16, Patriots 23. Patriots fired Gerard Mayo today, and I actually loved Robert Kraft's press conference. Robert Kraft said, "This is 100% on me. I think that Gerard Mayo can be a head coach in this league, but he wasn't ready yet. I'm the one who put him there. That's 100% my fault. And it's my job now to go find a coach that can get us ready right now." Because Mayo wasn't ready for the job. It was very clear based on some of the reporting out of New England this year, from mismanagement of his team to mismanagement of the press to mismanagement of games. Like, Gerard Mayo was not ready to be an NFL head coach. There is no shame in that. He was a fairly young man. He's only been coaching for like 5 years, and some coaches wait 15 or 20 years before they get their head coaching shot. I think he's dynamic as a leader. He was as a player. There's clearly some good there. He probably learned a lot, but this was the right decision. Also, unrelated, but kind of related, holy crap, watching Joe Milton is fun. I don't think he'll actually turn into a good NFL quarterback, but give me 3 Joe Milton games a year as a backup, whether it's in New England or somewhere else, and I'm signing up to watch that, because that dude runs around like a crazy person, and his arm is maybe the strongest in the entire league.
I'm probably on the opposite side of where you stand with the Mayo firing. I don't like it. But also, I think I could understand it in terms of what Robert Kraft was saying, as far as, he's not ready, thrust into a terrible situation.
the reporting on some of the stuff that happened in that locker room is just, it wasn't good. Like, he's not ready for the job.
Can't do that. Yeah.
And so I get it. And, like, let's be honest. This is another black head coach who gets fired after a year, who, like, there's been so many stories of guys getting raw deals. And then people still bring up Bieniemy. But, like, what'd you learn about Bieniemy? Like, there's a reason that the dude hadn't been hired. And I think there's a reason that in this particular case, Gerard Mayo gets fired. I think it's terrible that Kraft set him up to do this by putting that language in his contract a bunch of years ago. And maybe he would have a little bit more patience and let him learn a little bit more on the job if Mike Vrabel wasn't sitting right there. But, like, the best thing for the team is to go hire Mike Vrabel. So go hire Mike Vrabel. Like, it's not that hard. And, by the way, New England, one of the most attractive job openings because of Drake May. Giants, Eagles. Giants lose. They're 3-14. They will have the number 3 pick, I believe it is, in the draft. And they are going to keep Joe Shane and Brian Dable. Wow. I know they get crushed for the Saquon thing. I don't think that they messed up the Saquon thing. I think they messed up all the stuff around the Saquon thing, which is a bigger deal. The reason that signing Saquon back was stupid for them was because the rest of their roster was bad. Their quarterback situation was bad. And I don't think that letting Dable and Shane, who are now 100% on the hot seat going into the year, pick the next quarterback is the right move. Just take the opportunity to start fresh. Why do owners never learn from each other? And in fact, they never even learn from their own mistakes. When you have a chance to hit the reset button all at once, do it. Just blow it up, get a coach, a quarterback, and a GM on the same timeline, and do that. And instead, you have a bunch of teams around the NFL that refuse to do that. And we'll get to another one in just a minute. But Dable's a fine head coach. He's not great. But if you... And Shane, like, I think has made some smart moves, but he also is the guy that, like, drafted Evan Neal and did a bunch of other bad stuff in draft and free agency acquisition and how they use money. So it's just, to me, it's not enough. But congrats to Tanner McKee on your first career win. Jahan Dotson also, by the way, 7 catches, 94 yards, which is probably doubling his production for the entire season. I would look that up, but I don't care enough. Saints 19, Bucks 27. Of course, the big story late here is that Mike Evans gets 11 straight years of 1,000 yards. Very, very cool moment. Bucks win the NFC South. They will host the Commanders next week. Darren Rizzi probably gets to at least get interviewed for the long-term job in New Orleans. He had those dudes fighting, but that is a very, very interesting job opening. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. The Chiefs, oh my God, they didn't even try. Broncos 38-0 as Bo Nix goes 26 for 29, 321, 4 touchdowns, also has 7 carries for 47 yards. Broncos clinch the 7 seed, steamroll into the playoffs. Chargers 34, Raiders 20. Apparently not Antonio Pierce's last game, which, like, I actually like. You know, if you're Mark Davis and you made this decision, Antonio Pierce, you hired him off the interim. Is he the guy that if you shuffled the NFL would be your number 1 target? No, but I also don't know that you're going to do better. I think giving him 2 years and seeing if he can learn from mistakes is probably worth it, but he's made a ton of mistakes, and boy, he better learn, and we'll see what they do at quarterback, sitting there at 4-13 as a place that I'm sure Shedeur Sanders would love to get to. Seahawks finish 30-25 winners over the Rams, tied on record, but the Rams get the tiebreaker and win the NFC West. Seattle today fires offensive coordinator Ryan Grubbs, who was kind of an interesting hire. He was working for the University of Washington and got his first pro job as an OC, and Mike McDonald just clearly didn't like that. I think there's a lot of positive stuff to build on for Seattle. The problem is for McDonald is, like, you probably got a year, maybe 2 left of Geno Smith playing at a pretty high level. Geno got $6 million in incentives yesterday by setting a new career high as passing yards, broke a touchdown threshold that he needed, and there was one more that got him, I think, 10 wins maybe, gets him $6 million, $2 million apiece for all of those bonuses. Rams sat everybody, still made it interesting with Jimmy Garoppolo, who threw for 334 and 2 touchdowns. Dolphins are going to keep Mike McDaniel despite losing to the Jets. I told you this would happen, Anthony. What's the dumbest possible outcome for the Jets? A win. Cost them mega draft position. Aaron Rodgers finally gets, he probably had his best game as a Jet. 274, 4 touchdowns, thanks for nothing, bro. Please leave, and I hope the door smashes you on the way out.
I mean, I can't even blame Aaron Rodgers. Their defense finally played the defensive game that we've been expecting from them all season. They had like
They were facing Tyler Huntley and a Tyreek Hill who apparently wants out yesterday.
I mean, people fumbling, you can't control that. Jonnu Smith fumbling, like, I can't control it. But, yeah, Tyreek brought that on himself, though, man.
Of course he did.
He
Tyreek Hill's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, that's a bad dude who's done a bunch of bad stuff off the field and has played for a bunch of winning teams. And the second there's any adversity, of course he wants to pack his bags and go, because that's exactly who Tyreek Hill is. That dude sucks. Cardinals, 47, 49ers, 24. Blowout, mega fourth quarter for the Cardinals. Kyler and company overcoming a 326-yard day from Josh Dobbs, further proving that Kyle Shanahan can make a quarterback successful from pretty much anywhere. But the defense, that is the big thing for the 49ers this offseason. They fired Steve Wilkes after last year, and their defense was trash this year. And then game of the week last night, Lions 31-9 over the Vikings. Man, when we do our tiers tomorrow, Anthony, we can talk more about these teams, but the Vikings' inability to finish so many opportunities in the red zone in the first half shaped the contour of this game. Eventually, the Lions just went nuclear. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 total touchdowns. Congrats to the Lions on another incredible season. 15-2 after a 13-4, I believe it was, season last year. They just keep getting better. Vikings will be on the road at LA to open wild card weekend, or to open the playoffs for them. They're hoping, of course, to make a run where they would potentially face the Lions again in 2 weeks, but not if the Commanders have anything to say about it. That is our look around the NFL. Anthony, how did we do on the records real quick, because we are way over time?
We both went 12-5 again, so you'll finish 5 games ahead of me yet again.
Thank you. Thank you. That's another regular season title. I've also 2-time defending playoff champion, so we'll see how the picks go on Friday for Wild Card Weekend. Anthony trying to win something, but he might. Hey, he's got a 2-game winning streak and counting on Competition Wednesday. So next check in on some picks will be then. When we get back, our pick 6 at 6 as we wrap up the show on a Victory Monday, taking a look at the Commanders' win over the Cowboys and some key players that we identified Friday that really did help decide the game. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Download it in the Apple App Store, Google Play, or wherever else phone apps exist. I think that pretty much covers it. You can also listen to us at theteam980.com and watch us again live on YouTube at the Team 980. Say you're snowed in. You have a smart TV, YouTube app. You see Anthony in a Michael Penix style do-rag.
You see, hey, look, this is the do-rag he wore when he was at Washington.
Yeah, it's that beautiful purple hue.
That royal purple, man.
Yeah, he's got it rolled the same exact way, which is what someone in the YouTube chat pointed out, which I thought was funny, and so did Anthony, which is why I felt comfortable saying it on the radio. It's time now on a Monday for our Pick 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
On Fridays, we pick 6 players that we think will have an outsized impact in the game. Quarterbacks are excluded. And then on Monday, we see how those players did. And we start off with number 1. And that number 1 player was Micah Parsons. And boy, did he have an impact on this game. Had a 90.2 defensive grade from PFF as he had 3 sacks, 4 pressures, 1 hurry, had another tackle. Did have a couple of missed tackles on some run plays. But all in all, a fantastic game for Parsons. And frankly, I think he's the reason that Jayden Daniels didn't play the second half. I think Dan Quinn was kind of sick of seeing Jayden get hit by Micah Parsons and was like, this is stupid. We have the playoffs around the corner. And even though he denies that was a factor, I think that's why Jayden didn't play the second half. So, yeah, Micah Parsons, big deal. They did a much better job on him in the second half. So, got to love that.
Number 2,
Anthony. You had number 2.
Number 2, Mr. Craig Hoffman, I had Kevontae Turpin. I think he had sort of a mixed day. I want to say he didn't have any explosive. Actually, no, I take that back.
That's incorrect. He had an explosive on the first drive.
Yeah,
where Noah Igbenogany fell down.
Yeah, that was bad. And I don't even think, his route running isn't all that, but he's so quick, he's so fast, and he had that play. But outside of that, Craig, I think we did a good job of, limiting like his impact on the game. He didn't really have too many return opportunities. They lined him up in the backfield one time. He had 5 yards on that run. So I think we did a good job of just limiting the big play outside of that first drive. Like the first drive, we did give up some chunk plays.
He had 5 total targets, 3 catches, 53 yards. So his other 2 catches, he had averaged 10 yards of reception on those. Yeah. So like he definitely had, that's a Kevontae Turpin type of day. Can you get a big one? But I do think on the special teams front, it is worth pointing out that like Zane Gonzalez greater than sign Austin Seibert on being able to kick the ball through the end zone, which is why like it was so frustrating when they lost the Dallas game the first time. And it's like, why did you kick to that dude? Like you just had this big giant play. You have all this stuff that's going right for you. You're starting to get momentum, and you kick the ball to Kevontae Turpin, and he returns it for a touchdown. He's arguably the best returner in the entire league. And so what they decided to do with playoff seating on the line, they literally, I don't think they let him return a single one.
Nope.
Kick returns. He had 1 for 30 yards. So they messed up once. But also, they kept it away from him on punts / were able to make him fair catch it on punts. He had 1 punt return for 2 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So really sensational job by Zane and by Tress and by the coverage teams to limit the explosiveness there. Yeah, Kevontae Turpin. Thank God, not a huge impact.
Number 3.
I picked Terry McLaurin, and I feel pretty good about that one. This was an interesting Terry game on the whole, right? Terry in this game, he is pretty low volume in the first half, but when I say low volume, like didn't make a ton of noise. But there's a couple of near misses. There's the one where Jayden has to extend the play, and there's that he like runs. It's a 2-man. Yeah, it's a 2-man route, which I typically hate, and they typically hate. But they tried to take a big shot, and Dallas sat on it. And Jayden does a good job of extending the play, and Terry's just like, I guess I better book it. And he creates like this really beautiful window for Jayden to try to loft it into, and Jayden just misses him. There's a couple other plays where he's the target and he doesn't get it. And then Marcus starts hitting him and more in the second half. But there was clearly a concerted effort on slants, on hitches. There are some deeper shots that are covered where there's a shallow cross on third down where they put him on the right side and have him run across. It's the first third down of the game where Michael Dieter gets beaten immediately and Jayden can't get it off. But like that could have very easily been a 30-yard gain if Dieter even just like ships Parsons instead of full on whiff. Terry's so open because he smokes his dude off the line in man coverage, and they do a good job with the alignment to make Deron Bland run through traffic, and he's just chasing Terry. So there's a real concerted effort to get Terry the ball and feature him, and eventually it paid off in actual numbers. And obviously, I mean, congrats to Cliff, bro. Last play of the game, where do you think that ball's going? And they get the 3-by-1, get Terry isolated. I don't know why. I mean, I guess your choice is there if you're Deron Bland, or you give up the fade or you give up the slant. You can't not give up both. And he gave up the fade, and Terry made a hell of a play. That little high five ball where it's your ball or nobody's ball, and bravo.
What do you make of Terry and Jayden's like connection the last few weeks?
Yeah,
it's a bit off.
I would like for it to be better. Bold take, I know. I think Terry's had the ankle thing, which I think is affecting the timing ever so slightly.
Okay.
But it shouldn't, like, you gotta just make the throws. I don't know.
But the slant, I know in the I want to say that was the second drive, I think it was. He missed a slant, and then he also had like an out. Like we had like 3 straight targets to Terry, and we just missed them like all of them. So I think that would just be another thing that concerns me. Just being on, point with your number one receiver and making sure that he can go out there and make the plays.
Yeah, it was such a weird day for Jayden too. Like, I think by and large after that first series, like I have a note on one play where like he wants Terry on and out, it's covered. If he works back to the middle to Zach, he's got him wide open, but he doesn't make the throw, or he doesn't see it and he runs. But like for the most part after that first series, like I thought Jayden actually saw the field pretty well. It just he was off. And hey man, get it out of your system. Like let's go back to some warm weather down in Tampa this weekend and play like it's September. Maybe not September against Tampa, because that was one where Jayden didn't see the field very well. But Logan was texting me all these stats this morning, and he was like, can you double check this? Are they first in this and second in that and third in that? And like they're second in the league in unblocked pressures. Hate that. Like second or third in the league in explosive runs on offense. Hate that. So it's going to be a tough one this weekend in Tampa for sure, but they absolutely can win this game. They just are going to need a much sharper version of Terry / the Terry Jayden connection, which I think on yesterday was definitely more on the Jayden side of things. All right, we got 3 more players to talk about in our pick 6 at 6. We'll get to those in a second, but first, let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable crispy or roasted chicken sandwiches. Wrapping up here on the Team 980 because in 12 minutes from right now, you'll be listening to Westwood One's coverage of the FCS National Championship game here on the Team 980. Tomorrow, following the show, Wizards basketball. We got a bunch of play-by-play this week, but we're going to give you as much Hoffman Show as we can in the time that we are allotted, which means we will wrap up the show today with our Pick 6 at 6, final three players to talk about. And they are definitely interesting. Anthony, if you could please...
Number 4.
Rico Dowdle was number 4. Rico, who had another nice day against the Commanders, and Deuce Vaughn had an even nicer day. I think the talking point for the Commanders here is the run defense was not very good, Anthony.
I mean, all right. I'll ask you this before you say the run defense wasn't so good. Giving up 4 yards to carry. Is that bad? Okay.
4 is the threshold, really. Like, if it's 3-9, like, all right, 4-0, not good. We're getting to 4-1, 4-2, like, yikes, that's not good.
I think for the Commanders, though, like, this was one of our better days against the run in terms of, because of, like, where we were. I think when you look at Rico Dowdle, 22 carries, 72 yards, 3.3 on the ground, and then you look at Deuce Vaughn and Hunter Lepke, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah. Sure.
I think those two definitely had some explosive runs, but for the most part, I think we did a solid job bottling up their rushing attack.
I mean, they ran it a S-ton.
39
times.
Oh, 30. Oh,
39 for 150. So the 150, it's like, okay, well, they only averaged 3.8 a carry. I think the problem is part of the reason they run it 39 times is because you can't get stops. And like DQ actually, I thought, had a really good perspective on this today where he goes, unlike some of our problems this year where we've given up a ton of it, like we've been great and then we give up an explosive, like against Chicago or Philly, they give up the explosive and then they were great. This was just constantly giving up 4, 5, 6 yards. Then they get a stuff, but then they give up something else. And like Dallas ran, I'm not looking forward to watching the defense just because it's going to take me forever. They ran almost 80 plays in the game.
Good gracious.
Like I was able to watch the offense in 2.5 hours today. Like it's going to take me 3+ hours to watch the defense. Like I'm happy that we are off early tonight because I'm going to have to go grind out an hour and a half of tape tonight, get up early and finish the defense before we get to take command tomorrow. It's going to take me forever to watch this defense. And they tried the Deron Payne-Ed thing. It didn't, like, it worked on the first carry. The second carry, they gave up 7 yards. And I think that's the problem is there's just a ton of sustained drives where Dallas was able to make plays. And some of the sacrifices they made on occasion for the running back run game then hurt them in the pass game because the pass rush wasn't very good in this game either. And it's just being able to do it in a timely fashion. The ultimate numbers are not that bad, in part because some of the trick plays and stuff, like they get Brandon Cooks for a -5 on a reverse. Like they're good at that stuff. But can you stop another team's base run game when you got to have it? And that's where I think that things are still frustrating.
Number 5.
Number 5 was Michael Dieter because he played for Tyler Biotish, and boy, did they miss Tyler Biotish. Hilariously, Michael Dieter graded out at a 66 in this game because I guess he was really good against the run, according to PFF. He had a 43.9 pass grade and a 74.5 run game. And he had some nice moments in the run game. I will say, as I think back, like he had some good stuff there, and he's a big, strong, physical dude. But I just think the lack of consistency at that position is really hurtful, and you realize it when you go from a guy like Biotish, who you can pretty much rely on, and like not just rely on to get the assignments right and get everybody lined up, but like snap in, snap out. Is the snap going to be good? Or is he going to float one back there and cause the timing to be off? Or is Marcus going to have to one-hand a low snap? And there's just like stuff like that where you're like, man, yikes. And I had a thought during the game where I was like, man, do they just put Allegretti at center and put Chris Paul in at left guard? And it got better from there. But again, I think Michael Dieter was the reason that Jayden Daniels didn't finish the game in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I thought like when I don't want to like trash the dude.
Yeah, Michael Dieter's Michael Dieter. He's a backup.
Yeah,
you can do worse.
Yeah,
if you could do better, if you couldn't do better, then he wouldn't be a backup.
Yeah.
It's the Michael Dieter of it all. All right, we should get to this last one.
Number 6.
Number 6, we're like, all right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about BSJ and Michael Davis. So in this game, St. Juice plays 74 of 78 snaps. Michael Davis plays just... did he play any defensive snaps?
I didn't see him on the defense.
He played 0 defensive snaps.
Yeah.
That is stunning to me, quite frankly, because against Dallas, a team that we knew wanted to run the ball a ton, Michael Davis is a pretty good edge setter. So I thought purely in like an attempt to stop the run that Michael Davis would get some time, but he doesn't. And I think Benjamin St. Juice is the better player. And I thought Juice showed that for most of the game until big moments late where he just seemingly can't help himself. And I don't know what to do about that at this point, because one of them is a legit holding call that is a bad job by Juice. And the other one is exceptional coverage on a really tough play. It's a well-thrown ball and a good route that gets called for PI that isn't PI. And there's been like 3 or 4 of those this year where I'm like, if I'm coaching him, I don't know what to tell him because he did what I asked and the referees called a bogus foul. And that's frustrating. But the problem is when that happens to you once and twice, and like referees do scouting reports. And they, I'm sure in their scouting reports are like, hey, this guy's really handsy. So they look for it. And is that fair? No. Call the game that's in front of you. I hate kind of that they do scouting reports. But also I don't know. It's just same old story, man. Like that's really what it is.
Yeah. I was literally about to ask whether or not like St. Juice is just being called because of he has a history of, being ultra aggressive, physical, handsy. My thing is like you have other cornerbacks in the NFL, and I guess like a guy like Sauce Gardner, like his first 2-3 seasons, I want to say like he was always super aggressive, handsy, and it wasn't until this season where he sort of kind of had a down year where he finally started being penalized for being handsy or grabbing and things of that nature. So I don't really know what to make of it, to be honest. Like, I think you said it best. Like, he just.
I mean, Juice gave up. He gave up 2 catches on 3 targets.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. One of them he like played perfectly, and they talked about it on the broadcast. Like as soon as the back foot hits, like his that was one of the best breaks he had all year, and he's on it 5 yards on like a 1st and 10, and like good job. Yeah. I don't even remember the other one. I guess there's something with a lot of yak because it says 24 yards after the catch on a 28-yard catch. But it's the penalties. Like that's the thing. It's not the down in, down out. It's not what he outside of like the Mike Williams play. It's mostly been penalties this year, and that is incredibly frustrating. And just hope Lattimore gets back. And he got called for penalties too, but I think his reputation's a lot stronger. Although we'll see because he's matched up with his old pal Mike Evans. I'm sure the referees will be all over that and just let those fellas play. All right, that's our show for today. The FCS National Championship game is next. We'll be back tomorrow at 4. Stay safe out there. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980.